we have a collection of tools that we use to harvest the information from the box. And then we take that in and we transform the data into a way that it could be ingested into a database and then visualized at the end. And we're using the ELK stack to do that. And so just to give you an idea on some of the information we're collecting at the hardware level, right? Fans, voltage, temp, cell. These are all things that are provided by the BMC. And we've got lots of different fans and fan sensors and lots of different temperature sensors. We've got all these voltage sensors. So the idea is you're taking in tons of data. We're harvesting this every 10 seconds so that you have this high level of granularity of data when you look at it in a time series database. If we were to do this every 5 minutes, it wouldn't really tell you anything. Big data, collecting the data that you can at the granularity that you need to help you isolate issues or, foresee any upcoming issues that could happen operationally with the platform. And so we have this BMC sensor, or this BMC that's on the board, but it only gives you a snapshot of time. It only gives you a value for that specific moment. And they have the system event log, but it only records events. So it doesn't record nominal values of anything, only when something crosses a threshold. And so we're using the control plane within the chassis to go and grab all of this information and centralize it into a database. And just to give you an idea, if you're harvesting all of these sensor data every 10 seconds, and then you're going to add in, the rest of the 6 blades, and then you have the power supplies, which have their own temp and their own voltage and fan information, right? This number has now changed. I'll show you what the new number is. It's no longer 199 sensor data points collected every 10 seconds. It's now 600. And we only have 2 blades installed in the chassis. So we're collecting a lot of information to visualize to tell people operationally what's going on. On top of that, the next layer up from the hardware is the operating system. So we're harvesting syslog information from all of the operating systems. Even NoviWare, which is running in a virtual machine, is reporting its syslog information. And it becomes a centralized repository that's completely searchable, so that you can search for very fine-grained search to search for very specific events. So you no longer have to log into individual machines, have to go and search for data through a text editor. This is all being presented in a visual interface for you to see. So you're not looking for that needle in a haystack anymore. This is an example of just the flexibility of the pipelines that are the ingestion tool that we have. So you can harvest this information from almost virtually anywhere. We can have a tool, develop a tool to grab the information. And, we can bring that information in, we can transform the data, we can run different, if we needed to calculate the data before we put it into a database, we could do that. So it's incredibly flexible on how we ingest this data. And then we have multiple ways that we can output it. So we output it to a database, but if we needed to, we could output it to a messaging bus, we can output it to another database, but we're outputting to a database that we can visualize out of. This is the main dashboard, and we have this philosophy for green is go, right? So this is your whole level system dashboard, to where if you want to see what's the status of my system in the morning before I get a cup of coffee, right? You should be able to scroll all the way down this, and if everything is green, you're good to go. And so you see, we went through the host uptime here, collecting a ton of information from Syslog, and a network throughput, and then we go into the smart information, or the hard drives in the chassis. And one thing I want to point out here is this dashboard is an aggregate. So this dashboard is taking every single, whatever it is in a blade, whether it's a hard drive, it takes every single hard drive in the system, and it reports the worst case scenario here. So you don't have to look individually at each of the components. You can visually see, what is my worst number that I have here, and is it going to generate a failure? So this is, if you scroll down this list and you say green is go, we're good. And we have one down right here, which we'll get into later, as one of the areas that you would look at that and you go, oh, I'm getting red on there, so there's something wrong. But we'll drill down on that. So now we want to see what's going on in NoviSwitch. Alex went over this. So this is the network component. This is NoviWare running on the Tofino platform. So you get overall system throughput. You get this in a time series database. One thing that you'll notice is that when I roll over a time series database, I get a marker on all the time series data throughout the page. And that's really important because if I want to drill down and see something, I want to be able to correlate data. So I can go and highlight any one of these fields. So this is all the data that we've collected for today on network throughput. But if I wanted to highlight a specific area, I could just highlight this and it's going to update all the information across there so I can correlate an event. So if I see a traffic anomaly here, it's going to tell me what else was going on with the switch at the same time. What were the syslog events that were generated? What was my hard disk doing? How about the memory, CPU? So it gives you an idea. You can drill down that way. And then on the right-hand side here, if you want to see an individual breakdown of any one of these ports, then you can scroll through here and see, and you see as you update, as you go across the time series database, it actually updates the table on the right with what that value is. Now, if I want to isolate a port, I can go ahead and pick a port. So I want to see port 1, and so I can click on port 1, and it's going to isolate only that information on that graph, so that you can start drilling down on very specific ports if you want. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, and then Syslog. Syslog is very interesting. I'll go over that in just a minute. So we'll go back to the main dashboard. We'll go look at Syslog. So again, this is collecting all of the operating system messages that are generated by the operating system, and we're collecting it in this database here. And so it gives you a breakdown on first of all, who's the top talker, who's the one generating these events. And then, like I said before, you can click on one of these and just isolate an individual blade or a VM in there. And then you get this nice graph down here that gives you an idea, what are the types of messages? What are the breakdown of messages that are being generated by Syslog. And you can go get information about that. And then you can, if you want to, you can go ahead and filter this so you get only certain types of messages. Like if I just want to see what are the warnings, then I can do that. And as we move down, it starts giving you information, a breakdown of what generated it, what was the process that generated the message, and then you can filter the syslog below by clicking on one of these values, and then it's gonna change this and show you all of the warnings. So you can easily filter and drill down on information to get to the critical information that you need. So, like I said before, it's no longer looking for that needle in the haystack. We're giving you the tools to drill down and figure out what was operationally going on in my platform. And so maybe, if this were an event that I were interested in, I could click on this event and see the database record of what happened. But now, what if I just want to isolate that? Give me the time series information on what was going on across the chassis, and what we're generating events before and after that. We can load more events or load fewer events, but it's just another useful way on how to drill down and see what was going on. I'm on the cell details page. The good news here is that everything is green and there's no results found, meaning the last 15 minutes, nothing happened with the box. So if I change the time scale to this year, we did generate some events, right? So now we could take a look at what's generating the event. Oh look, Lanner 1, 16 critical events were generated since we started this project and doing the data collection. So let's just focus on what those critical events are. Okay, so we see that it's the 12-volt rail was generating events, and we see that we get the error messages from the cell logs for that 12-volt event. And you see that this event lasted for about 1 second, less than 1 second. It crossed through thresholds. So my guess is that these two events, they happen on separate dates. These two events may have been a power supply that you plug in, and while the power is stabilizing, you had a slight, over voltage situation that was maybe caused by a transient inrush current, and it went away. So it lasted less than a second, and it returned to normal. So don't really think this is an issue. And then we have the Ipmi detail information, where we can go in and we can take a look at all of the hardware subcomponents, the temperatures that's being recorded, the fan speeds that's being recorded. The two things that generate the most truck rolls are fans that die. And we certainly don't want that, because then you have overheating situations, and hard drives. So this is why we really focus on these elements, because if you can stop a truck roll from happening, or if you can aggregate multiple maintenance things that need to happen, or if you can preempt something from happening, then having this information and having it available in time series so that you can take a look at it over what's the trend over time, right? Because some of these things don't just die. They give indications, like, if a bearing in a fan is starting to seize up, it's going to start slowing down before it stops. So you'll be able to see that through the time series database. And then you get an idea of all the voltage rails coming in. And this is for blade 1. So you can get a snapshot of what the current values are. And then you can scroll through time to see, how steady that is. And go back to the main dashboard. We have the power supply information. And remember I said earlier that there's something wrong with the platform? I got a red on the main dashboard. So we know that there's something going on in the power supply. If I were coming in first thing in the morning and I wanted to, check the system, I see that and I go, well, before I get my coffee, I got to check. So we see we've got these nice big gauges, beautiful to display what the current status is, what the temperature is, the power in, amps, voltage. It's all graphed in the time series database for us. We have it for power supply 2 there. And then we go, oh, power supply 3. So it's generating a record for temperature. So we know that it's plugged in. But this one just happens to not have the actual power cord plugged in. So we know, the sensor is active. It's probably receiving some standby power from something, but it's not plugged in. Go back to the beginning, and then the last thing was something that that Alex went through is one of the new additions for this release, and this is incredibly important to be able to see the status of your drives.